Okay, we're live on YouTube and being recorded.
Yeah, 5:50. Still getting the phone, I'm not sure what usually that is. You got it, girl. Minute for what?
Like a watch car,
Huh?
like a watch car.
Okay, 6 o'clock. Good evening. I'm gonna call this meeting of the South Thompson Select Board to order at 6 p.m. Before we go to item 2, I just want to apologize to those who were trying to participate or listen from home at our meeting 2 weeks ago. We had technical difficulties for our audio being picked up, and therefore it's also not on YouTube, or it is, but it's no voice. And actually two that were trying to participate are here tonight. We tried desperately to fix it, but it just didn't work. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Yep. Terry,
No,
you never heard from Brian? Oh, no, we talked about that in a month. Okay, I don't have any. Public comment for items not on the agenda?
No.
Public comment for items not on the agenda? Okay, hearing none. David, can I assume you're here tonight for, to speak on behalf of Amy's request? Is that a correct assumption?
No, she should be logging on anytime.
Oh, okay. All right, I was gonna take it out of order just to get you out of here quickly, but if that's not the case, then I'll jump back to the regular order then. Review and approval of the prior meeting minutes. Oh, excuse me, back to adjustments. We do have adjustments, don't we? No, we don't. Then we can take that up under the ARPA. Okay. Review and approval of the prior meeting minutes. We have November 15th and November 22nd.
I move we approve the minutes from November 15th and the workshop.
The discussion. All those in favor? Okay. Old business. Is there anything we need to take up out of order here? I think so. Okay. Process of nominations to the South Thompson Library and Community Center Auxiliary Board of Directors. We table this from the November 15th meeting due to those technical difficulties that I just mentioned. We did, for the benefit of Sandy, for your benefit, we did briefly talk before we tabled it, acknowledging that you had sent us this information. And I think we sort of, we didn't vote on it, but I think we sort of had a little consensus that we agreed with the idea that one select board could perhaps join a few of your committee members as a nominating committee. Yeah, we didn't actually vote on that, but I thought we sort of thought that was the route to go. We did not select who that might be. But I'm not sure, do you want to offer anything at this point, or are you just?
Well,
Well, I would like to, I would like to proceed because we are beginning to talk to people and so we'd like to do it and enjoy
Yeah.
the process. So I think the sooner the
Yeah.
better. But
Well-
I'm interested in what you have in mind.
Well, I think we're ready, hopefully, to appoint someone. If we get a volunteer. And.
Well, maybe.
Full of precious stuff.
And I have a couple of questions about this, but maybe we should start with this first. Does that make sense?
Expectation.
The one, couple of things, sorry, wrong page. So this is basically a draft of expectations that your committee drew up regarding members of the board of directors of the nonprofit, or hopefully future nonprofit corporation. Well, I guess it is nonprofit now, tax exempt as well. So I guess one question I had is, number 3, it talks about a financial contribution known as a capacity gift. I feel, although I'm not interested in being the select person that sits on this, I feel that since we're appointing someone to this committee, that perhaps that person should be exempt from this. Because that's a person that one of us has to join. So I feel that to force that on somebody, I mean, that person's certainly welcome to, but to force that on one of us that has to join, I just feel a little comfortable with that, but, sure, yeah,
A capacity gift means that in your annual giving to whatever charitable contributions or organizations, if your highest amount of capacity is to give $10, that's your capacity gift. And I'm sure most of us give at least that to some organization. If you have a particular organization that you're committed to, and the idea is commitment here, if you're committed to, AI,
3 million.
area innovative outreach, feeding children, and you give them $500, which would be really nice if you did. That would be your capacity. What is the highest level of your giving, which means that your commitment would be to this, so I guess my point is that I don't think it's a hardship on. I hear what you're saying, and I wouldn't want to say that this committee, this board of directors would be your highest commitment, but when you go for grants, they want to know that your board of directors is fully participating in giving. So you could define the capacity gift yourself, I suppose, but I think to make it exempt means that we don't have 100% participation of the board of directors when we go for grants. And for 501c3s, that is often a question that comes up. So it doesn't have to be a lot, John. I think it's
Yeah,
a question of
I understand that. It really isn't the amount, it's the fact that that seat is the only one that's in sort of forced on someone. And it's the principle of it, the fact that it's that seat is forced on someone. This is not the hill to die on for me. I don't know if you guys share the same concern. I just feel that, where this seat is not, one of us, at least under the bylaws, has to serve. So it's sort of a principle of it, in my mind, not to be even those 2 cents. I mean, so.
We'll abide by what you.
Yeah, I don't know how you feel, Jeff, but.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was a good thing to be able to put into the request for grants that everybody.
Right. Which doesn't mean that the person can't.
Correct, yeah. But I also agree that it is the only one we're forcing something.
Yeah.
I think from the principal side of it.
Okay, Walter, would you like to chime in?
Yeah, whether you've designated or not, the select board member is effectively an ex officio member of the board of directors. Ex officio, but also voting. So if you were, to me, if you were to make that designation, then that would relieve that individual from the ex officio members of boards that I'm on are not expected to pay to play. So that kind of eliminates that individual as in the calculation of 100% participation.
Yeah,
I mean, it sounds like an artifice, but
Yeah, I'm not sure that I don't want to prove though, designate that as an issue, and I hate to make a mountain out of more. But,
Well,
Um,
once the board of directors is selected, they can also make, they can look at those bylaws. There's possibilities to
right,
consider changing the.
Yeah,
And they would run that through you.
and I guess the other thing that we need to remember here is dealing with just sort of a handout to potential members, and obviously the three of us will have heard this discussion. So, but anyways, just my thought on that. The other thing that I saw was, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, but I see this this corporation as primarily having one primary purpose which is raising money, and then I see that spliced into two pieces. One is sort of fundraising, if you will, donation, stuff like that, and the other is grant. Because I thought in my mind, one of the primary reasons we created this is there are grants that municipalities are not eligible to receive, but private nonprofit corporations are. And I just didn't feel when I read this that I saw much about that. Maybe I kind of missed it, but and maybe in your maybe in your mind, the word fundraising kind of includes both. In my mind, I think of fundraising as seeking donations, and I think of grant. So maybe it's just the way I define fundraising as opposed to the way your group did or you did. So that was my only thought.
Okay, so I would respond by saying, we've looked at various committee requirements for a board of directors, that each board member would need to be on some kind of a subcommittee, grants being one of them, events being another, finding donors, cultivating donors, that kind of thing. But also felt that before, and governance would be another thing. So before saying what the committees are, allowing the board to be able to decide some of that, what those committees are. I think asking the board to be the grant writers might be kind of scary. I mean, there's plenty of good grant writers in town. And a board member might like to work with the grant writing group, a committee, a subcommittee of people who are known in town for writing grants. So I think our thought was, and I did have it in here at the beginning, but the nominating committee felt we should let the board decide what are the first committees that need to be established for their participation. So I agree with you, I guess, that grant writing is hugely important, because that's why we're doing 501c3. Take advantage of grants that can only be done from a 501c3. But anybody doesn't write grants and is afraid to write grants, oh my God, I don't want to write a grant. So we need to have people of all different kinds of capacities on the board of directors, and a person who wants to oversee grant writing, but isn't necessarily a grant writer, could work with some other folks in town about that professional. That was our, we can put writing committee work in here, and maybe that's what you want to say.
No, I'm not actually thinking of committee work, and I wasn't actually thinking of the person necessarily actually writing the grant. I was just, I mean, I think if you simply say to me, in our line, fundraising includes grants. My issue goes away.
Yeah, well, I can definitely do that under the second bullet.
But, or, yeah, it doesn't even have to be grant writing. It could be grant procurement, or, you know, I don't know where it's about that. So those are my thoughts. Okay. Thoughts?
Yes. I'm trying to think of the process for nominating individuals for these. And I'll go to one of the other boards. The appointment for board members were 3 different organizations. But one group, committee, brought all of the paperwork and the background information and the racking and the stacking and even making recommendations on who should fill each one of these. That this organization should do this, and this organization does more as a paper clearing and a staff work kind of function for the appointee. Were you thinking along those lines, or?
Well, we have a list going on, and the nominating committee has been looking at different people with different kinds of backgrounds and different kinds of capacities and saying, okay, let's talk to that person. And so it's like building, you know, a team, and you know, you talk to somebody and they're not at all interested in being a board member, but maybe they know somebody, or maybe they would be willing to work on a committee down the line. I mean, talk to me in 3 years when we're ready, you know, so it's those kinds of, you know, building those kinds of relationships that I think is going to take us a while, but we're in the process, and we'd like to do that with you. So I guess that's, you know, we know we need somebody good in financials. We know we would like to have somebody good at communications and then marketing, and, you know, all, and events and all the different things that are going to allow us to raise money. Grant writing being also a big part of it. But
So then you do that. See, what I don't really want is for 3 of us to find our nominees,
oh, no, I don't.
and then you to find your nominees.
That's not. a good
And
idea.
then we get together and we realize that we omitted somebody or we duplicated somebody. And I do think you're right. I think it is building a team with various different functions, and you need one group to build that whole team, regardless of who appoints each one. Okay.
Yeah, my impression was we had already agreed sort of to that process.
That they were trying to people that they
Right.
wanted.
Well, and along with one of us.
Yeah.
Right.
In other words, the nominating committee would ban by
Oh, yeah.
one of us.
We have one nominating committee.
Yeah. And we also, Penny has a nomination here too, and it'd be nice if she can coordinate with that group as well as we move forward. So,
So if we have somebody that you think is good for it, then we should refer them to this, to
We
your.
should probably have a first meeting together with whoever's going to be your person and our nominating committee and Penny, and, you know, we can bring our names to that, and, you know, and then we can have a conversation about, you know, how to proceed. But we're sort of trying to build, like, you know, ambassadors, I guess. We're trying to get out to talk to people, even if they're not particularly thinking they would be a board member. They might be a board member in 2 years when we have to, you know, rotate and all that.
okay, so, sounds like we're on the same path here, or same track. So I think the next step personally is for us to, appoint someone, for lack of a better word, to this nominating group. I'm not even gonna call it a committee. And move forward. I do think that don't think it's critical, but I think it might be nice that it would be the same person that might be interested in being on the board of directors. So I don't think that has to be the case. And that person has to be a select board member. And I think I told you last week, I am personally not interested.
I'm willing, but I do think it's that you would be more. And so unless you just don't want to do it. So I'm in between him.
I mean, I'll give it a shot. A lot will depend on the time commitment.
Yeah. Well, this is hopefully a one and done. I mean, well, and except if you end up being appointed, that's down the road, but we're not actually doing that.
Correct.
I mean,
You'll be only nominated.
right, but and the thought would be, the hope would be that she would then transition to the permanent,
We're not there yet.
but we're not there yet. So,
So the next step would be
So-
to have a meeting.
do we want to, is there a motion to appoint Sue as our representative to this nominating committee?
We'll wait, let's see, our representative.
And I'll second that. I'll second that. Further discussion, or hearing none? No, seriously, any further discussion? It's your last chance to vote. Okay, all those in favor?
I vote.
Yeah. Or you can abstain. So you'll coordinate and then
Need to get contact information for you.
then you get Penny into the loop. And we can hopefully get this set up. Great.
Well, these committee meetings have an agenda and minutes recorded.
This little group,
And then,
that's why I said I'm gonna call it a group.
Three of their committee minutes. So,
Yeah, I don't, is it three from your group? Ooh, that's too bad. That's the threshold for a public meeting, right? Can you make it two?
No,
3 and 1?
no, it is a working group to fill personnel positions.
Well, they can do it in executive session. I think was clear about that, but that does not avoid posting agendas
Correct.
and posting minutes. Now, the minutes may say that when you executive session came out, but
I think it's great having, because the more people, I mean, I know what you're saying, but you know, we're trying to canvass as many people as we
and
can.
if it's not an issue, perfect.
So we have to post, we should post the meetings.
Well, I think technically you should, if it's 3 or more, yeah. You know, that's the threshold would be 3, because that's in effect a subcommittee of a public committee. So I guess the answer, Penny, is yes.
Once the show was determined, that's one. 2 meetings.
Yeah, no, I think I just repeated what Kristen had told me, yeah. But again, the threshold, I wasn't sure how many were on your committee or on the group, so. So, okay, we good to go? Did we vote?
We did.
Okay, boy. All right, anything else on this? I don't think there is. Okay, Amy, are you here for your request regarding the ARP funds? Can't hear you.
Yeah, muted, that's why she's speaking now.
I know.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Okay, do you want to just, for the benefit, since we just got this, can you just briefly explain it and also at the same time the public can hear it? What your
Yeah.
request is?
Yes. Hold on, I'm gonna bring it back up because I just X'd out of it to get my mute off.
Oh, fine.
Just bringing up the report that I had. So Um. Okay, so what the request was is for the high-vis PACA PPE jackets for the fire department, the EMS. We got them through a grant through COVID, and they didn't add fire department to that, and they have been helping us on multiple calls, and that's not even with just COVID, but throughout. So this was a request to get them the jackets for PPE. So when they come to lift assist, car accidents, that kind of stuff, that it's high vis and it's got the guard on it for COVID or flu or any of those infectious disease. So it gives the sizes and it also requests the 3 extra for the ambulance to put on our ambulance for people that are not there on a like weekly basis, that we don't give them a jacket, they just grab the one that's on the wall to use. So those are 3 for the EMS truck. So there's a cost, I got a cost for it. The total cost was $4,010. And in the letter that I drew up, it has the jacket and all the what it is and what it protects. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Question? So, when you say this is for the fire department, I assume the fire department is, you've talked to the fire department about this.
yes, yeah, I have talked
From you
to,
for the fire department, which is kind of unusual.
well, it is for the fire department people, but it's to help us also.
And how many were we talking about?
It was a total of
Oh, plus
20.
20?
Yep.
Okay. Thoughts, questions? I mean, it clearly falls in the scope of what these funds were, the highest priority that these funds were for, or second highest probably. Does the board want to take any action on this?
Yeah, I definitely add this to our expenditure.
You want to make a motion to effect it? Okay.
Which, by the way, we're on.
Yeah.
I can pull that up.
I don't have my sheet in front of me, but I think we should put an exact dollar amount, or not to exceed amount
4,000.
into the motion, if that's okay with you guys.
I had to go into Trio to pull up the amount.
I don't think it's,
I don't think it's really changed since.
because we got the other, the fibs from.
Right, we
County,
haven't,
right?
yeah, but we haven't paid for them yet. We don't have them yet. Hopefully not.
Yeah,
Hopefully not.
so that's an open question.
Yep. There is 67,368.96 in there.
And potentially an obligation for the fibs.
Potentially.
Okay. We made a motion. Has there been a second? Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Amy, before you leave,
Yep.
we can come back to discussing the ARP funds later, but deeper into the agenda, we have a request from Lifeline again. And I was just wondering, last year we had quite a little discussion about this. Actually, it's from the Life Foundation, not Lifeline.
Thank you.
Well, and last year we had a bit of a discussion around this, and I know Amy, you were involved in that discussion. I'd like to take this up on order while Amy's here in case she has anything to add, or if we want to pick her brain about something. And Jeff, I believe you were the one who led the discussion last year.
Yeah, I don't think we get a lot of value from Lifeline. And I have never been really truly comfortable with their mechanisms for funding, because when they want to be, they're for profit, and when they don't want to be, they're not for profit. Which I guess is what we're going to try to do. And we use Penobscot Island Airport Lifeline. And if you look at the thing that they passed out, shows how many times which towns have used Lifeline over the last year, I think.
Yeah.
And the only town I could not find was South Thompson. So I'm in general not in favor of contributing.
Well, we also have this policy or practice where we have decided not to make gifts in our budget to nonprofit corporations. That doesn't mean that someone couldn't go out and get a petition and put it in front of town meeting, but we sort of have a tradition, which I suppose could be broken at any time, where the board has basically agreed not to put those on the town meeting warrant to make the town meetings 7 hours shorter. No. That's not true. So this feels kind of like a similar request, and it feels like to me, it feels like we'd be going against that practice. I don't even want to call it policy, because we could change it in a minute. But Amy, do you have anything you want to add, or you don't have to? I'm just not trying to put you in an awkward position. But if you all of a sudden, geez, we really use these guys a lot, I might change my mind.
I actually don't know if we've used them very often. David might know more on the night shift or whatever, but we're close enough to the hospital a lot of times that they stabilize them and they get shipped from the hospital via life flight. And I think that they ask each town by how many people they have. It's not how many times they use it. So I mean, it is up to the towns. Some of them do give them the amount, and some of them say we don't use them enough, and they charge enough to the patient or to the insurance that they do not support the donation. I honestly don't have, like, I wouldn't say don't give it, or if people really wanted to give that and have it available, because they do, you know, go from trauma scenes or MIs and that kind of stuff. But so I wouldn't want to say yes or no. How's that?
That's fine. I just wanted to, if you had any thoughts on it.
We are the
Sue?
only local town that doesn't donate to it.
Well, that's, I think, true of several of them.
Yeah.
Because we don't put it in.
Because we just don't have the practice of doing it.
I didn't hear what they said.
I said, we're the only local town who does not donate to it.
Are we the only one who doesn't, or the only one who didn't use it?
The only one that doesn't donate to it. according to-
Yeah, I think everybody else donates the small amount.
Yeah. Well, I personally am gonna stick with our practice of not donating to nonprofit organizations. I think it's done served us well over the years.
I mean, I think that if that's
I'm just one vote.
no, but I think that if that's what you do, I think that's a reason, you know, to not give to any nonprofit. It makes sense.
I just, we've had major discussion of that in the past. Okay, so unless somebody wants to donate, I don't think we need a motion. Hearing none, I'll move on. Thank you, Amy. Unless you have something else.
Nope, did the
Okay.
jackets pass or you're talking about them later on?
Yeah, we will.
Yep.
Yeah, it passed, yeah. You're all
Okay.
set.
Okay,
The owl's not moving, so I'm not sure that everything's being picked up.
Oh.
yeah, it's,
Everybody, are you having trouble hearing us?
yeah, sometimes because it usually goes to the person that's talking, so it's kind of like a muffle.
Okay, well, we'll all have to try to speak up. Thank you.
Okay,
Have a
thank
good
you.
night.
You have a good night too.
I've been trying to look on my phone to troubleshoot. So it might be a loose connection.
Yeah, everything works fine for the first 50 times we used it.
I am no technical wizard here. I don't know. Looks like everything's plugged in. I don't know why they wouldn't change, but you just never know. We'll see. Penny's the expert on this stuff.
Okay, well, I'm gonna move on.
Okay,
Update regarding the tennis basketball court. As I said I would, after the last meeting, I called Doug Beck at the Bureau of Parks and Land, but whatever they are, he said. A long chat with him. He's supportive of our idea, but he offered up a hybrid. He would like us to not give this grant away or give this grant back, so to speak, and request a grant modification to some of the work that we wanted to do under the original grant. So I kind of kicked some ideas around with him. And actually,
So this got pulled out of the wall.
by the top,
It's the plug, it got pulled out, so it's.
hey,
yeah, it probably works better plugged in. Oh, I don't see the light on the screen. Oh, yeah. it's
Yeah,
blinking
the
now.
eyes are working.
So, had a long chat with him, and he basically said that we can apply for. We need to send in a narrative explaining the reasons why we want to do that and what our revised scope of work is. So I kind of kicked it around with him quite a bit, and it sort of neatly works out budget-wise, assuming this doesn't take 3 years to get approved, where we could do the parking area, do the handicap paths, and repay the walkway. And then we could apply for another grant to either rebuild or repair or one or both of the tennis courts. And why we're doing this, he felt that we could, we can't technically apply for the grant until this one is closed out. But hopefully that could happen in the spring. And then we could reapply for the next round, but he felt that if we get this approval, we could sort of test the temperature about whether or not we could move forward with, in my mind, I think we're still talking about one tennis court originally, but, and I thought that was a great idea. So I took the liberty and wrote up like a 4-page narrative that I wanted to submit to him tomorrow, if you guys are agreeable. And I have to send in a revised budget to them. I thought that was a much better plan. Yeah. So, I mean, at least we'll get something out of it. We can then use the donation money that we are sitting on, and we can let people know that, hey, something happened with the money you're doing. So with your blessing, I will continue to work along that path. Great. Okay, yeah. Okay, great. All right, let's go back to the ARP funds. I don't have anything more to add tonight. I don't know. Some people had some homework assignments. I don't even recall who had what. I did have a question for Penny, but
I did my homework.
my question to Penny was, did the boiler include the propane tank and mounting it is bringing it in? I'm not the boiler, the generator.
It does not, because it is not big enough to require the big tank, so he recommended that you do a rental. Like we've done with Renai at the.
Do we actually rent that tank or we just
He
get it?
said what it would be two small pigs, which are 120. And that, basically that's 130 a year rental. He said you can buy them and that would allow you to change your
Yeah,
gas company.
I guess I don't understand why I have two pigs. I don't, and I don't pay anything for them. I guess I don't, huh?
What's the pig?
It's it's the round tank that looks like,
Right.
you know, it's about this
But
high.
it's pretty tall.
Yeah, it's about this high. It doesn't look at all like a pig.
They do when they're sideways. like-
Well, maybe. Yeah. But, they're fat. But, and those are free. I
Well,
mean,
he said it would depend on your deal with your
right, right. But the problem here is,
buyer.
Does it include like the work for the base for those? to
Yeah,
sit on?
they put them on,
concrete
Fresh
block,
yeah,
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 cement pads.
yeah, so there'd be a small cost of installation of the tank probably.
He said that the supplier would be better for that.
Yeah, yeah, but I wouldn't.
Yeah, but they would charge us
cost,
that.
so. But typically, so what I'm wondering if there might be a charge, because in my tanks, I mean, I heat the house with propane and I do this and I do that, so I'm buying gas from them monthly across the season. In a generator, you don't use a lot of gas, you just have to have a lot of backup capacity.
And you just pay more per gallon.
Okay, all right,
if you don't use much.
Yeah.
okay, all right.
But we don't know from the gas company whether that is the way it would go, whether they would want us to purchase them since we won't use a lot of gas. Or
No,
if it's a rental.
DC Electric said they would probably prefer we use their tank. And if we switch suppliers, then they would have to bring their own tank.
So BC Electric,
Provides gas?
No, this is what, when I talked to him, is what he was telling me about this process of.
I'm still confused, though.
Yeah.
You said BC Electric would prefer they use their,
No, he told me that the propane company would prefer that
Oh.
you use their tanks, they fill them. If you
Yeah.
happen to change suppliers, then they would come and take their tanks away and the new supplier would come in.
okay, that makes sense, okay. And maybe where we have all our propane here is, well, we don't have much, right?
Most of the suppliers, when they provide the tank, they don't charge you that.
But we don't use any propane to speak of except for the library, which has now been transferred over to the historical. So we don't have any more, but we don't have it. True. Yeah. Yeah, well, we own that now. So we do replenish it,
I think we need to look at that.
okay? Put it on the list. That was serviced a couple of years ago. They're supposed to service it every year.
Yeah, remember last winter, it stopped.
No, but anyway,
No,
we can talk about it later.
yeah, it was a bit cold, yeah.
Okay, so, and this system could be used in this building. It would allow us to move an emergency center to Gilbert Butler, according to Betty. We could get out of the historical society altogether. And also the generator system could be used, in a new building, when that comes to pass, or I'm gonna say when that comes to pass. So I'm ready to move on. Yeah. Because I think it's a long wait list.
I think.
Didn't he say it was?
57 months,
Yeah.
that's the order was placed.
So is there a motion?
What was the?
Do we need to go on?
The estimated total is 12,358. And the way they build it, and that was the complete total, but they bill upfront for the generator and the shipping. And then they bill out the installation and all related parts and labor when the job is complete.
And I move that we authorize the expenditure of ARPA funds up to $12,500. For the purchase and installation of the generator.
I'll second that.
For discussion, I do. Betty said, I believe, that she thought we might be able to get some EMA money towards this.
Correct.
So I think we should contact her. No?
It's not for fixed generator.
Oh,
I asked her.
okay, because that's at the last meeting you said, I thought you said that she said that we could.
If it was going to be more portable or whatever, it's like, what's up with the schoolhouse.
Ah.
But
well,
when
that's
they
good.
are fit, or I can't remember what they call it.
Okay, well, I still think we should, since it's gonna take months, we should try to look around and see if we could maybe secure some other funding for this. And, you know, ask Betty to look around. Nothing we need to put in the motion, but.
Yeah, and we don't need this part of the motion. The portable one we've got at the Elizabeth Schoolhouse. In the interim, before we get this one built in, can we use that one in? And go for that one?
No, Debbie said. It wouldn't, that, you know, it's not wired for it. And, it's too small, this one will do two. Well, it's for a 400 amp service.
So it wouldn't run the heat probably and,
I
yeah,
don't know, I didn't talk to him about that.
yeah. Well, that's something we could look into.
Okay.
Anything else you want to add?
No, but are you going to authorize the expenditure of the ordering of the generator from the ARPA funds now?
I think that was
Yeah.
most, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And what's
which
the
does
fund-
not preclude us though from,
Finding others.
if we're waiting several months, then maybe we can find some other.
Yes, but the ordering, they bill up front for the generator.
Yeah, that's, we typically don't pay up. Right?
What is that amount? Penny?
What's the company?
Generator,
No, but we would pay the BC Electric.
Right.
yeah.
Well, maybe Terry can talk to them and say we typically don't pay up.
Maybe they'd be willing to pay half.
Yeah, well, whatever. Yeah.
It looks like the generator is right on six.
A lot of times if you say to a company, you know, we're a municipality, we've been here for 250 years.
It could be that he, because it does sound like a, you know, a standard boilerplate plate for a homeowner.
Yeah,
That's
but
not bad.
once they pay it out though, I can understand them wanting their money. Once they pay for the generator, but we can talk to them about that. Okay, well, Terry. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Okay. Who else had homework here?
Oh, may I ask one more thing? The street light for the parking lot, was that from the first tranche of the ARP money?
No, yeah,
It'll be the second one. Have you heard anything?
they're supposed to do it on December 19th.
Oh, I thought it was last month.
No, December
Okay,
19th.
December then.
But that's all set, taken care of, we voted on that.
But
Yeah.
Okay, so other homework people were doing, Sue, you were gonna look into something, I can't remember what it was.
Well, I was going to, but then Penny had a project that she was looking for heat pumps and a
Okay.
for the whole town.
Okay, okay,
So it seemed like it would be
Yeah, the jobs recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Program.
Okay. And Jeff?
I didn't have homework, but I do have something I want to use. Yeah. Done.
Okay, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, the Freetown Solid Waste Co-op is planning, I think it's in the spring, it might be early summer, to do a hazardous material recovery program. And there's a cost involved in that. And right now, the plan is for each of the towns to chip in money towards that, so that people from the town will drop off their paints and their spray cans or whatever's hazardous. And so I'd like to just set aside right now, we may be doing something different about it, we may do, but I want to set aside $5,000 for the town's participation in that program.
Okay, I'm agreeable to that. Sue, do you have any thoughts on that? Or?
I don't think it's a good thing.
I do too. I think people struggle getting that correct.
Yeah.
I know, I keep moving in my barn to different spots, thinking that it might go away. All right, so we just need to sort of squirrel that away, I guess, in our thinking when we ask Terry how much is left. So, but when I said I was agreeable to it, I'm agreeable on one condition, that they change the parent sign, that says the Thomaston Recycling Center.
Okay. I have a meeting with them on Thursday. So I will bring that up.
You're gonna keep hanging me with that.
No. It's just. Good.
Have you spent all the money? Because I have a suggestion for consideration.
We are kicking around lots of different suggestions at this point, but
Okay,
it's
so I have one that I've thought about, and another that's kind of high dive and may not even be relevant. I would suggest that you reevaluate and reconsider, and perhaps put aside whatever funding, joining the Mid-Coast Internet Development Corporation. It now has 8 members. And in the short term, we have 2 vendors now, 2 providers of media. So this is not necessarily a burning building, but if you kind of play that out, we are in effect subject to a duopoly. Spectrum owns the coax, and Fidium owns the fiber. To me, what will happen over time is there'll be price equilibrium, and the sweetheart deals that especially Fidium was offering, that a number of us took advantage of, will go away. And the people who will be most victimized by that are the people who can least afford to spend 110. I mean, next year it's going to be 100, just for the medium, and that's going to accelerate up until the point where Fidium reaches the elasticity point. Because Spectrum is not going to come in with a better mousetrap, because they can't. The 3 reasons, the 3 advantages that the utility have still exist, or has, in theory, still exist. Open access, the ability to control pricing to some extent. I mean, that's very future and what if. It's future proof. And Fidium is, but isn't. And if you're a subscriber, as I am, the 1/32, as opposed to the 1/4, and that's how splitting is done. The utility, is driving towards 1/4. Fidium is locked into 1/32. And I already see, that, what used to be my full gig, speed, at various times of the day, that degrades. And it degrades at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when all the kids come home and start to stream and play video games. And then at 7 and 8 o'clock at night, when their parents are working and they're still playing video games.
We're doing the homework.
Right. So, again, the utility, their plan has always been 1/4. So, you know, and they now have eight participants. And interestingly enough, Cushing is one of the participants. You recall that they share the same town council that we do. So, for consideration, and, you know, there's a get-in fee and then there's an ongoing fee, but, you know, I just want to make sure that people still are thinking about it. Because, I'm thrilled with Fidium, solution that I got, but, I kind of know what's going to happen down the road. I'm going to be less thrilled with, how much they charge me.
I don't recall there being a get-in fee. Is that new?
I haven't talked to anybody there. I just,
Okay.
I read the article about the new 8 people, and I've been thinking about
Yeah.
my own experience and, we kind of walked away, back when, for good reasons, not the least of which Fidium was the best short-term deal.
Well, and
But now
also,
it's-
they never responded to our correspondence or
Right, well,
questions
there's
either.
that,
I mean,
So, something to consider as you're, either, placeholding or, the other one was, whatever you can do. And it may not be appropriate for the ARP funds and probably in the budget to help the fire department with recruiting. And if that means, referral bonuses, et cetera. I think that that's going to reach a crisis. I mean, you know, the help wanted signs are out for Owl's Head and for Thomaston fire departments. If there's meaningful activity going on for regionalization, it's certainly not visible to me. And I don't think that exists. It's been the panacea for as long as I've lived here, and nothing has happened. It seems to me that if there's an opportunity for Owl's Head and Thomaston and South Thomaston to get together and try to solve the problem on their own, or at least put effective bandages on the wounds before it really gets to be a problem. Because you know, just by what our firefighters are reaching their expiration date. And they're not being replaced with a pipeline of newbies.
2 comments and then I'll turn to Jeff and Sue. On the fiber, the Midcoast Internet Development, I think the appropriate path at this point, if you feel strongly along those lines, and you were on the board, you were always the most plugged into this fire above me and my lack of technology capacity. But we do have a technology committee who last I knew had reported to us that we should kind of set Midcoast aside for the time being and see how Fidium plays out. So my thought would be to kind of, if we want to, kind of kick it back to them based on Walter's suggestion and ask them to look into it, and perhaps you'd be interested in expanding that. That's one thought.
I'm looking for a sign.
Well,
But I'll be happy.
I think they might meet remotely. So, I mean, is there any interest in kicking this back to them?
No, I think we ought to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
disagree with the idea of a municipally owned utility from the beginning. It's just some of the,
As you know, I was just disenamored with their their processes and how they were building them. And so, and when Fidium came along, it was a relief, really, to quit wrestling with something
Yeah.
that's having trouble with anyway.
And I bumped into one of their former original board members, I'm not gonna mention any names, and basically through the lines, I heard him say to me, we made the right decision.
Do you
So,
think it would still be, he still feel that way? I mean,
well, this was just 2 months ago. So, 3 maybe. But, you know, that's just one person's opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
But so is there a motion to ask them to reevaluate our potential, participation?
And I think they're still funding.
Yeah.
At least one of them.
Okay, is there a second?
okay,
Okay, further discussion? I would ask that maybe if Walter, if you would be comfortable, calling Cliff if this passes. And kind of explaining what you just explained. I mean, I'd be happy to email him and say that you're gonna contact him or something, because we'd like to. Would you be willing to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
We,
Are you on the committee?
pardon?
Are you on that committee?
What?
No, we don't have it.
Yeah, you're not on?
No, that's why I said maybe we could expand that committee.
I was ex officio.
Oh.
He was sort of the select liaison to it, and Maureen, go ahead.
I just had a question pertaining to this, because 131 isn't wide
Right.
for Vivian,
Right,
so where does that fit in?
well, I was thinking that when Walter was talking, I was gonna say another potential reason is, I don't know what their plan is, Fidium's plan is for 131 at this point. I mean, they've said they're gonna move there, but
Correct. Because it comes off of Thomaston, so they
Right.
have, ours comes off of Rockland. And for the rest of the town, 131 comes off Thomaston. They haven't moved the fiber to Thomaston yet. When they do that, then 131.
the question is, when
When do
are they gonna do that? And,
A year ago, they said a year to 2 years.
yeah,
But, you know, just Thomaston is still part of the corporation.
right, Yeah.
So,
yeah, they were like the third member in, I think.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Actually, Walter, if you don't mind, why don't you just call Cliff and
Yeah.
explain to him, and that way it's taking an email. He'll believe you.
We can
Um,
with some frequency.
Yeah, the firefighter, does anybody have any other comments on the Fidium or the in a minute? Okay. The firefighter issue, I mean, it's not just the fire department. I know that's a critical department, and that's probably one of the worst cases, but it's across the board. I mean, code office, again, planning board members. And I think, it appears as though the ambulance is not is struggling as well. I mean, I don't think it is to the degree of the fire department, but, and I don't know what to do. Perhaps we should have a conversation with Brian. Yeah. And maybe budget time is the time to do that. Okay. Any other thoughts on the fire? Walters? Okay. Thank you, Walter. Anything else on ARP funds at this time? No censor?
Yeah.
Terry, are you working on anything? Okay.
I'm supposed to get with the air filter for that.
I'm gonna skip D. Let's remind me to go back to it. That can get kind of nerdy and boring. Let's jump to the budget guidelines. We typically send out a letter to department heads about this time. Last year it went out December 28th. Basically telling them the gist of it is you got to get a draft budget in for your department to Terry by a certain date. Terry provided us with a copy of last year's. And I think, Terry, you've also worked on a potential timeline,
Well, briefly, but then I was, got sidelined.
then you got sideline being code officer. There's some obvious things in this letter that we need to mark up, changing the dates. We also can strike, obviously, the sentence that we're gonna return to a 12-month budget from an 18-month budget. We can work that up. But I guess the big questions are typically we don't have to decide this tonight, but typically we give folks a planning purpose assumption for a cost of living increase. That's one of the things that goes in there. We also tell them that if they want to make any wage or stipend adjustments for individual employees or classes of employees, that, you know, they need to come and talk to us about that. I mean, this is potentially something that could help the fire department. I don't know. It may not be an issue of money, but for example. And some other mundane things in here about Terry will provide them with expenses. Do we want to, I assume we want to continue this practice, get a letter out? Do we, when's our next meeting? December?
December 13th.
And this went out December 28th. So why don't we, by the next meeting, think about a COLA adjustment and anything else we want to add to it? Terry, maybe we can take this and just kind of clean up the dates and strike out the things that obviously don't apply anymore. And two thoughts that I had is, one is I seem to get this impression from some of the departments that they kind of depress their budget requests because they don't want to come in to us in a shock, I guess. But since, well, let me back up. Years ago, for years and years and years, the department had submitted the budget request, and the select board and the budget committee saw them together for the first time at the same meeting. And that was changed sometime 7, 8 years ago, something like that. And now the select board reviews them first, massages them, works them through, and then, so we have the department request, the selectmen's budget, and then that goes to the budget committee, which personally I think has worked really well. It means extra meetings for the department heads and us. But I do think it's worked pretty well. But one of the things that I would like to emphasize in the letter is I would like the department heads to tell us what they really feel about what they need. I think sometimes they artificially depress their requests because they feel like they can't possibly come in with a 20% increase in their request. May not get approved, but I would like to know what they're thinking and what they think they need. And I think sometimes that's missing in this process. But so that's one thought I'd like to think about before next meeting too, is do we want to encourage them to, even if it's on a supplemental sheet or something,
Yeah, I like the idea of it.
because then you hear about it all year long. Well, I didn't put it in my budget because I know what we're gonna. Well, you should have put it in there. Might have.
Or like a wish list.
Yeah, I mean, I almost hesitated to use the word wish
Yeah.
list, but yes, that's sort of.
But, this is what we absolutely need, and this is
Yeah.
other stuff that we would like. to
Something
have.
along those lines. So I'd just like people to think about that before it's put down in the next meeting and how we can word that. I don't want to, the downside to that is I don't want to raise expectations that are unrealistic. So those are the thoughts I had.
And I agree with you, but I think at the same time, we want them to submit to us a responsible, reasonable budget.
Definitely.
and
Request.
yeah,
Yeah.
budget request. And although I want to know what the things are that they think they need, their additional needs list. I do want them thinking about how they get that over time so that they're not putting $250,000 worth in this budget request. When the reality is they could put 20,000 in 10 years. So I want them thinking through that process, but I would like to see. And some organizations call it a capital improvement plan or a capital plan. So that you have a separate list of these are the things I would like to get in the out years of what I'm building. So that you understand that in this year's budget, this one line item is probably going to be the same for the next 10 years, or it's going to grow for the next 10 years. So I like the idea of doing that.
But I'm not limiting it just to capital
Right.
necessarily. I mean, and I'll go back to the fire department. If Brian came in here and it's just, I put that for it. But if he came in here and argued, geez, if you would raise the wage $3 an hour, I could get 20 more people. I mean, I'm just again, pulling numbers out of a hat. So I want to hear that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You know, it doesn't mean I'll agree with it, or you'll agree with it, or you'll, or the town, or that we can afford it. But I think it's a conversation that we at least need to have at our level with the department. And I know that sometimes it's a little difficult because we have to do this in a public setting. I know when I was a town manager, I would say to them, tell me what it is you need, because if you don't tell me, I don't know. Now, that was in a private setting, so it was much easier to say, well, I ain't gonna have a job.
Right.
But, okay, so we'll table this for the next meeting. People will think about it. Do you want to try to draft a little blurb for what you just talked about?
Yeah.
You call it additional needs or
Yeah.
something, well, maybe you said additional needs, but.
I said wish list.
Yeah, supplemental, whatever. Yeah, and it just needs to be, you know, something like that.
And just so you know, in my mind, the COLA increase is 8.7%. Just give you that heads up.
And that's based on something that you'll tell us about at the next meeting?
Well, it's based on what the feds are given, what Social Security is given, what military is given. So Walter had a.
Oh, sorry. Comment?
I hate that.
Yeah, it's always behind us.
I was thrilled when I just got my 8.7% notification.
Yeah.
Of course, the Part B premium ate that up too. But
But it didn't for next year.
Pardon?
Didn't for next year. It's actually going down. But
It depends. To me, judging today's employees' increases on the basis of Social Security, cost of living increases, is not the right framework, in my opinion. And I would suggest, and I'll do this, if you wish, is to go look at the main revenue forecasting committee's November report, where they will project CPI out for next year, and that has always been my favorite COLA increase is the one that's related to Maine and to Maine employees, not to retirees.
Well, we'd welcome any information that you'd like to give us before the next meeting. Which is December, we only have one in December.
13.
Huh?
13.
yeah, and again, the reason I'm hard over about COLAs and which source you go to, not as important to me as trying to get as close to a real cost of living increase as you can, is because like that, if we raise their pay $3, at some point in the past, we looked at all of the firefighters in the state of Maine and all of the APMS, and we looked at all of the CEOs and all the administrators, and we said, here's how much it ought to be in the middle of the pack. And if we don't COLA it every year, then in 3 years, we have to do that process all over again because we're out of line. So I think it's important to give the COLAs, and I do like, I think the state of Maine one would probably be a better one. It's just easy to grab the one that.
As always, Jeff, we come at these things with two different sources and end up in the same place at the end.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, I'm afraid the main one's gonna be more than 8.7. That's the only reason I say that, but.
Okay, Terry also passed out a proposed timeline for 23 budget development.
But I did intend to go back and kind of refine my budget.
Okay, well, you got 21 and 22 here, so basically, you're proposing basically the same as the last 2 years, really. I mean, the dates are moved one or two ways, right?
It seemed like it works.
Okay. So we're talking about meeting with department heads, this board meeting with department heads, February 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, right in there. And then the budget committee meeting, which is nice to get, somewhere in the April 3 to 6 period.
Right, and this was before I asked you when you were coming back, so that could be put out a little.
Yeah, I would like to be here for that, and I'm probably not gonna be back to the 6th, but on the other hand, you gotta move, if you can't make it work with the warrant and stuff, you gotta go without me. But unfortunately, during that time period, I wouldn't even be able to Zoom.
Yeah, I made this before I asked you.
Yeah. Okay, so we can work on that. Everybody okay with that? And then and maybe once we firm it up a little, we can get something out to the budget committee. Who's down 2 members, and their longtime chair is no, I shouldn't say resigned, did not seek reappointment. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so, and she's been the chair for a long time. Okay. All right, moving right
You want
along.
to make a motion to table this till next meeting?
Sure. There, motion table is the next meeting.
I move that we table the discussion of the personnel policy. And then,
No,
No,
the budget, yeah. The one we're on now, the budget discussion.
oh, okay. never
I
mind.
jumped over that because I said that gets kind of nerdy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. To the budget guideline letter to our next meeting on December 15th.
For a second.
I'll second that.
But I think we really need to come prepared to finalize that at the next meeting. Okay, consider an appointment to the budget committee. We have Penny Alley has volunteered. We have 2 vacancies on that committee. Can use, I believe one is created by Bev's resignation, and that term ends when?
Whenever I put on that,
You didn't put it on, that's why.
it's on that red folder right next to you, John, has the appointment for the sign and we're doing that. Not in there?
No, I just do with 3 of them, and I picked 2 that weren't. That would be to 23. June of 23, which is just a few months. And then we have another vacancy that ends in 25. Can I ask, did Penny, I know she said, did she request the 23 term or?
I figured it'd be easier to
Okay.
get her to rejoin in 23. than it would be someone else.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to, appoint Penny to the budget committee with a term ending June 23?
So
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. I sometimes hesitate having employees on the budget committee, but I think in this case, Penny has had so many hats and been selectman so long and has so much history that she'll be a great ass. Just reminding of it, Don't forget, we did that 12 years ago. So, so in this case, my hesitancy is overwhelmed by.
Experience.
Yeah, so, comment.
I think I encountered this situation, early in my first term. And is there a rule that precludes it, or was it just a practice?
I don't
But the
believe
question
it.
is there a rule that precludes an employee from being on the committee?
I don't,
Or is it part of the budget? Is it mentioned in the budget committee policy?
that's a good question.
So
I didn't research that. But if it's in the policy, we can change it.
trying to remember where it came up, because we had to deal with.
It would be like an incompatible position. I don't recall ever seeing anything in state law that said employees couldn't be on.
Although it's not the most popular thing in Wellshead right now.
Yeah,
What does?
the budget committee policy says no paid employee of the town may be a member.
I thought. That is the policy though, and I wonder if that's based on the state.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Maybe we should table this to the next meeting and research this a little bit, and we certainly could change the policy. If we wanted to. It's not an ordinance. Correct, Jeff?
No, it's not an ordinance policy. Looking at the- Rise to 2020. And I think the only reason, because you'd end up having to recuse yourself from the budget for the cemetery, and for the library, for any of that would affect your pay. But I'll check and see if there's anything.
Yeah, and I think we could simply make a motion that our policy notwithstanding.
Yeah.
We elect to do that if we so choose to do that.
Well, and I'll go ahead and make that motion. I move that we appoint Kenny to the budget committee. Even though our policy,
Policy notwithstanding or something like
yeah,
that.
policy notwithstanding, unless state law prohibits
For a term ending,
in the year 2020.
is there a second? Further discussion?
Well,
Sorry, well,
I applaud your decision, and your full disclosure, I wrote that.
Oh,
okay. So did it come?
That I don't,
yeah.
I don't recall, whether it was state law, conversation with Kristen, or I
Yeah.
was confronted with that situation and decided that. And I think it was a confab between Moira and me, as a matter of fact.
I think in general, it's a good practice, but
Yeah.
there are, in my mind, there are exceptions, so. And this is one of them.
I mean,
Okay,
they are small budgets, and there's a stipend to that employee that vastly doesn't appreciate what she does.
okay, all those in favor? So will you research? Yeah. Okay. So we probably shouldn't sign that tonight then. So, okay, thank you, Penny, for volunteering.
Walter's not in the budget committee.
No, but I was thinking planning board would be a good. He won't come to these meetings anymore.
Well, at least we didn't do it while I wasn't here.
I'll check back with you, Jay.
Thank you.
I think the tech committee's a better place.
Yeah,
That's one meeting.
okay, accept the resignation of CEO, LPI Dan Dates. this was, supposed to be effective the 7th, but Dan returned his stuff in yesterday and didn't come in today, so. And his time card, and he told Phil that it would be his last time card, so. We don't actually have it in writing, but I think we need to move on, and I think the fact that he turned his phone and time card in is sufficient evidence. I'd just like to say that Dan basically had told us probably 4 months ago that he really didn't have time to do this job with his business.
Right.
We met with him last Tuesday, to see if that had changed. We were hoping that maybe with the learning curve under his belt and you know, things maybe would slow down because things were crazy this summer. There was, you know, a lot going on, building permits, and he kind of reaffirmed that still, he did not have the time with his business to effectively perform the job, particularly the enforcement side. I mean, he was basically just trying to keep up with processing permits. And he also told us that he felt that the number of hours that were budgeted were, even if he did have the time, were insufficient. Anybody else want to add anything else before we vote on this? So, no?
No.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. And I'd like to just inform the public that we had Terry Brackett, who's the plumbing inspector in St. George, was our assistant plumbing inspector, and he's agreed to stay on as our assistant plumbing inspector, and actually we appointed him as the plumbing inspector on an interim basis effective December 8th, I think it was. And he's agreed to do that. And we have appointed Terry as the interim code officer. You don't have to be certified for a year. Just so we had someone who could process permits and help, you know, had the legal authority to sign documents and stuff. And we're gonna try to help her. We talked to her, Curtis, she's gonna try to help her through this process. And Terry Brackett has indicated, who's also the code officer in St. George, as well as the point inspector, has indicated a willingness to try to help as well. So, thank you, Terry, for stepping up and taking on this responsibility that I'm sure you didn't see coming.
Nope.
So, with that, we'll move on. Monthly report. We have, we typically don't get them at the second meeting, but we do have I wouldn't actually call it a report, but I think a very interesting correspondence from Cliff that talks about the difference between colds and influenza and RSV viruses and SARS COVID-19 viruses, or not COVID-19, but COVID viruses. With a very colorful map of where things are hot these days. I found it interesting to read it. I'd like to send it out on the listserv.
Oh, yeah.
I do think personally, we should put some disclaimer at the bottom and say, this is just something like general information. Anybody with an individual health concern should contact their own physician or something like that. But I would, you know, and I also think we should credit who it come from, health officer.
Is there something you could post on our bulletin boards for our non-lister?
Yeah, definitely, but I'd like to get the disclaimer on it.
Right.
I think people shouldn't, I don't want people to say, oh, you know, people need to call their own doctor if they got a problem.
But I could print it from the lister and post it.
Sure.
That's
Oh,
all.
I think that's great. I found it quite interesting.
Yeah, I like how he, described how each one was transmitted.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
what was effective to fight it and what wasn't.
yeah, exactly. And I like this little thing about singing seems to be a particularly effective.
No singing.
No singing. There are two sides to this. This, right?
Yes.
Oh, you didn't see the back? Yeah. Yeah, it talks about holiday time and. Maybe you should make sure that he wants to keep, my wife, the lawyer will kill me. In it.
Oh, yeah, he's got the disclaimer there.
Huh?
Yeah, he put the disclaimer.
Yeah. I
He
can't-
did, but I don't think it would hurt to put it outside
Yeah.
at the bottom of it in bold capital letters, you know? Personally, I just think we should. Yeah, I didn't see this little disclaimer.
It's the last paragraph on the back, where it says my wife and mother, after my
Oh,
wife
yeah.
Lori will kill me.
This letter should not be used as substitute
Right,
for sharing decision.
Yeah.
Sounds like
Right.
a really quick language at the end of all this.
Yeah.
okay. Let's go back to health insurance. Is that the only thing we got left other than the personal matter?
Okay,
Oh,
the truckers.
yeah, we have another correspondence for Trekkers for a donation. Personally, I say the same tack that
Yeah,
I did
that's
before.
what they,
Yeah, would you tell them though, Terry, that,
Yep.
you know, that's just our practice and if they want to get up a petition for town meeting, they can do it. Okay, so, on the personnel policy amendments that we discussed last time, the ambulance was fairly simple. I just added a section C that says per diem holiday pay, per diem employees. And then it says the article 4C for definition shall be paid at 1.5 their normal rate for hours worked on a holiday. I think that's covers it, straightforward and simple. Not so. When I tried to rework the health insurance, by, you know, adding words and striking words, I got so tangled up that I was ready to blow up my computer. So I said, this is dumb. I'm just gonna start over. I think I sent this out to you. I think I've captured it. Finally.
Right. I do too. The only recommendation I got is in paragraph, subparagraph D,
Mhm.
we say the town shall pay 50%
90
or 90%, yeah.
of the single.
Yes, but I think you need where it says, single plan premium for enrolled full-time employees. Because we're not gonna pay 90%.
No.
All full-time employees unless they're enrolled.
Sure, but I guess that would be true of the other.
No, I think the others. I think the others. The wording in it is pretty clear.
Well, says the town shall pay 90% of the single plan payment for full-time employees as defined in Article 6. You know, I think the simplest way is enrolled in the plan, maybe. Full-time employees enrolled in the plan.
Yeah.
But then the definition doesn't. That doesn't work because now we're back to. Where it says as defined in Article 4 is referring to the employees.
Yeah. But
Maybe it's as simple as saying at the end who are enrolled in the plan.
yeah, or I just stuck it between 4 and full-time. So it's 4 enrolled. full-time.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And I guess,
And then changing it to, I think, changing it to.
well, wait a minute, Jeff, it says,
Paragraph.
no, the first one says employees who elect to enroll in the plan. Oh, yeah, okay, no, never mind. Yeah. Okay, and then on the family, after 5 years of service.
Yeah.
It doesn't say that. That'd be F, right? Yes, F. After 5 years of full-time service, the town should pay 50% of the difference between the lowest cost non-single plan premium and the single plan premium for family members for full-time, oh, it does say, full-time employees enrolled in the plan. Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
I was thinking of all the others.
yeah, yeah. So, but the real key here is Terry. Because the other one has to administer this, and the other one who asks questions every time. Doesn't.
Well, I thought it made sense last year until I went and read it this year.
Does it make sense to you? Have you studied it carefully? And
I
do you,
have read it several times.
and, would it make sense to say, have Phil read it or something and see if he has a different interpretation than you have? Just for chuckles.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I feel reason.
I mean, and then you guys could maybe have a little discussion and, because if it doesn't say the same thing if it says different things to two different people, then there's a problem. So we gotta make a change anyway. Do you want to table to the next meeting?
Okay.
And look it over, and Terry, I think it might be a good idea.
Okay.
Okay. So is there a motion table to the next meeting? So, okay. It's not easy to write.
No,
Not easy to read.
Well, that's the other part too.
like contract,
Huh?
it's like working
But I
on
mean,
contract.
no, you can't say that, because then that would mean. I have to get a tissue. I have to.
Like the stuff we give them appreciation.
We've done it. We're about to go into executive session.
Okay. Are we done on the executive session? Is there a motion to go into executive session?
I move in accordance with Title I, Chapter 3.1, Paragraph 405A for personnel matter, that we enter into executive session.
I'll second that.
All in favor?